Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody. Coast to Coast, This Week in America. John Mariotti's riveting new novel, The Chinese Conspiracy, poses a huge question. What happens when nothing happens? What if all forms of electronic communications and computer controls were shut down all at once? This is exactly the frightening prospect in The Chinese Conspiracy. The U.S. government is temporarily helpless as panic spreads. Evil forces are using global extortion to exact a frightening toll. Real-world situations, current technologies add chilling credibility to The Chinese Conspiracy. John takes readers from human interest to the global power struggle and back again. Far less deadly than the attacks of 9/11, yet infinitely more disruptive. The Chinese Conspiracy poses the question, what happens when nothing works? John's the president, CEO, and founder of the Enterprise Group, was a director on 6 corporate boards. He was president of Rubbermaid Office Products Group, a multinational group of 9 divisions spanning 4 continents. He led Huffy Bicycles to the position of industry leader as the world's largest bicycle company. An award-winning business author, internationally recognized executive consultant, and keynote speaker. He's written hundreds of articles and columns, 12 nonfiction books. Started his career in the telecommunications industry, was deeply involved in governmental affairs during parts of his career. Currently, he lives in the Columbus, Ohio area. His chilly new novel, The Chinese Conspiracy, has received rave reviews. Tom Quinn saying The Chinese Conspiracy has the intrigue of John Grisham, the spice of Mickey Spillane, and the technical aspects of Tom Clancy. And author John Mariotti, our guest on This Week in America. John, a pleasure. Welcome to the program.
Rick, you left off one thing, leaping tall buildings in a single bound. Not on there.
I was going to add that later. I'm hooking them in, and later, about halfway through, we do the Superman routine. When you rip off your T-shirt and you've got the Superman T-shirt on under that, then we'll go into that.
I'm not going to do that right now. Maybe 25 years ago I might have.
But not now, okay?
Well, thank you for that kind introduction.
Well, thank you for spending time with us. I love what you're doing with this riveting novel. I'm trying to find all the new adjectives that I can use to describe it, and we'll cover many of those as we go through our conversation. This is so well done, basically ripped from the headlines, and we'll talk about some recent events that follow along the message that you have in The Chinese Conspiracy. What inspired you to write this? What inspired you, and when did you start this?
Okay, I'm gonna try and keep this short, but one of the things that we find as we get older, we get more data, and it's hard to edit things out. I got this idea over 20 years ago. I spent my time in electronics, and I learned a lot of things that were possible, and that made me frightened. And Y2K, for people who don't remember the Y2K thing,
oh, yes.
When all the systems were worried that the computers would quit working when the year 2000 came on their calendar. It was a non-event as it turned out, but what it did was it caused a lot of companies to go out and hire programmers to program and giving them free access to all their stuff. Now, the net effect of that was they also gave them free access to all their stuff.
Oh, yes, yes.
And you can imagine. So many people put what's called backdoors, which is the way that a computer junkie can get into a computer and have free reign for a while until he gets thrown out. And that was the first idea that triggered it. Second was I spent my career in operations. And I spent all my time trying to help companies in America be competitive. And in doing so, you see the pain and suffering that people in small towns go through when their plants get closed, their jobs go to China, and nobody knows what to do about it because there isn't anything they could do about it. And that influenced my choice of who the topic of the novel would be, because China has the largest hacking industry in the world. They have universities where they teach people hacking from the time our kids go to high school and up. And so they literally, everything in this book is technology that is known and possible, which is scary.
Well, it is scary. There's so much, and we've got John on. We're going to really talk and get into this because it's a great story. It's well told, and it's a love story. It's a story of patriotism and good guys. All of the elements that make for a tremendous reading experience are in John's book, The Chinese Conspiracy. How have things changed in 20 years? You're talking about 20 years ago. Technology has changed. What were people hacking our pagers back then? How big a threat was it?
there was not nearly the pervasive amount of technology in the hands of consumers
Yes.
in those days, which meant their opportunities to do mischief were limited. But one of the early ones for people who have been computer junkies or know about it was called the Distributed Denial of Service, DDoS. Translated, that means they just forced you to shut down your computer because it was acting weird and reboot. Well, what's the effect of that? Well, it takes your computer offline for anywhere from a few minutes to a couple hours. And that was the original hacking. Then they developed these worm viruses that they could implant in computers. And that came in about 2010. And ironically, our government has known about this from that time, because the guy that wrote a book called Cyberwar, Richard Clark, was the government expert on this. But he got frustrated and left. Why? Because nobody would listen to him. Nobody would listen to him, and nobody would, and they wouldn't let him hire any of the highly qualified techies because they wanted big money. So Clark said, "To heck with it. I'm going to write a book, Cyberwar, and I'm going to hang it up." So he did. It was a great book, 2007, 2008, but not enough people read it, and most of them that read it wouldn't take it to heart because they already knew it was a problem. So time moved on. Back in the original point, there may be a couple million network devices. In today, 21 billion network devices.
Say that again, because say that again. That's billion with a B. I mean, that's staggering.
21 billion networked devices around the world, which are well, let me say accessible. If people can get into them, who knows what mischief they can do. The example to bring it to today, one of the biggest healthcare companies in America, United Healthcare, had people that got into their computer systems and were there for a week before they were detected. This just happened this past year. They got access to 190 million. That's 190 million names and information on Americans.
Wow.
190 million out of 330 million. How's that? That's the magnitude of what this can be. And the thing I talked about in the book is I'm trying to scare people, but I want to scare them not to dig a hole in the ground and hide. I want to scare them to take some kind of action and to really understand it. And I can't write a technical book about it because who would read the long technical book? So I wrote a love story, a story of redemption. The hometown hero comes home, tries to help save his town, finds the girl he always wanted available. That's good news. And then he starts getting into what's going on there. And the scary part about the way the Chinese do things is they don't make a big fanfare about it. They sneak in and hide. And the second line to remember is, how do you fight an enemy that you can't find or see?
No, that's
First
interesting.
one is what happens when nothing works, and how do you fight an enemy that you can't find or see?
How do you? Is there a way that we should be able to counter that to some extent?
The answer is very carefully. Very carefully, because for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. You know that because you've been around the world for a while. And what happens is, if you try to take too much overt action, they've developed systems now to show you how things have progressed. They used to be, you got a worm or a virus on your computer, and you turn the antivirus software on, and the antivirus software cleaned it out, and you were good to go. And then came what they call these replicating worms, multifocal. There's all kinds of technical terms for it, but basically what it means is, in the worm that infects your virus that infects your computer, they implant a piece of code. So when you go in and try to patch it with antivirus software, it says, fine, I'll take that, but I'm going to add this little piece of code because I saw you were here to see me. That reinstalls the virus again. So you take it out, it reinstalls itself. Finally, last spring, Microsoft owned up to it. The article sitting in front of me says, Microsoft says attacks hit its server software. They admitted that they were getting so sophisticated at putting these self-replicating worms in their computers that they were having trouble fixing them fast enough. Now,
amazing.
Parallel this with the human interest story. This all takes place in a small town in West Virginia that used to be a coal mining town. It has a mountain. It's about 2,500 feet tall. The mountain has the elevator, and it goes down to a mine underneath it, a cave, where they did coal mining. Well, the Chinese think, hey, this is a pretty good deal. If we put all our transmission stuff on top of a 2,500 foot tall transmission tower, located in West Virginia and draw a 750-mile circle around it, you can get about 2/3 of the population of the United States from one location. And then they use military jamming software and traditional worms and viruses. Every bit of technology that existed and that existed then, exists now, is just faster, more sophisticated, and more scary. And the reason is that how many people here are like me, and probably you, that don't manage their passwords very well, that
yes.
don't update things when they get patches they need to put in very well or at all. And they depend on that human negligence and apathy. So I wrote this book at the time, starting to be a warning, an alarm for people to say, pay attention. The enemy is here already. It's not coming, it's here. It's embedded. And if you have something you don't check periodically, you can have it in your system and not even know it. Meanwhile, it's scraping everything that you know and using it against you. If not, maybe they don't. How many times have you gotten postcards or letters saying, we need to inform you that your information has been compromised? I've got 3 of them on my desk that came last week.
Basically every day something happens.
Yeah. And what do you do with them? Well, the answer is that the class action suit, and anybody knows about class action suits know that the only ones that make money on class action suits are the lawyers.
Yep.
Okay. So you don't do that. You basically take it and look and say, well, do I need to sign up as part of this? And unless it's something really big and material, as the accountants would say, you just throw it in the wastebasket and hope nothing happens. But think about that can happen. Now, if you want to take it the next step, and some of this is in the book, some of it's inferred in the book, some of it's stated in the book. So I'm not going to tell you endings. I'm not going to tell you what happens along the way. Let me tell you that these are not Chinese government people per se. They are Chinese government people who are the ministers of information industry in China. And they don't like the way China is being run. So their goal, which they state early on in the book, is to not just take control of the United States and dominate it, but take control of China and oust the leadership of China and take control of that.
Now you have
an ambitious program.
Well, yes, and you've got that person, the Minister of Information, in the book. The book is the Chinese Conspiracy. Wherever books are sold, we'll give you all that as we go through, and of course, links on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Wei Ying, am I saying that correctly? He's the Minister of Information, and he has global ambitions, doesn't he?
Well, and what happens is we know that in society, and I'm getting sort of into the weeds a little bit now, but we have short time frames in our world because our country's only existed for 200 years, and we want things to be done in days, hours, or weeks, or minutes, or seconds.
Yes.
The Chinese use a whole different calendar and clock. They have long-term plans. They don't mind if it takes them a week, a month, a year, 10 years, 20 years. I remember when I was in the bike business, we asked them one time, we were selling bicycles in China, and we were working with Chinese suppliers, but we realized quickly that you didn't want to try and compete with Chinese companies because they would crush you. Why? Because they were subsidized by the government. They didn't need to make money. But one of the, we kept saying, how we look at their bikes, and their bikes are built like tanks. They're heavy as can be because you'll see people, 2, 3, 4, 5 people riding on a bicycle, carrying loads around China. And remember, one of our guys said, how long will your bicycles last? And this little Chinese guy looked him up and down and said, for your lifetime at least. Now, that shows you the difference between how
yes,
the Oriental global circular mindset, long-term time. Now, that's built into their plans. Their plans are that if they can go undetected long enough, and how they, and now my hero of the book, my protagonist, is a global consultant. He escaped from his small town and got a big-time job in the world and was traveling all over. He didn't realize while he was gone, the factory that was the lifeblood of his town was being compromised by Chinese invasion. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of the story because it helps set it up. It is not unlike what was done in many cases. You don't have to plant too much information wrong to get people to have a bad financial report and to company go to sale or to force them into bankruptcy. And I remember somebody asked me something, well, what really gave you this idea? I said, well, my mother gave me a book at age 16 or 17. And the book was called Hiroshima, written by John Hersey. Very thin book. And she said, honey, you need to read this. Because Americans were then just hiding under their desks. They didn't know where to go. The nuclear threat was so great in those days. But I remember reading that book and saying, oh my God, what if somebody did this? Well, I just wrote a book about, oh my God, what if somebody did this? Except they don't want to do what's happening in Ukraine. They don't want to blow the country up. If they're going to take over a country, they want to leave it all intact and then control it.
Okay.
That's different. See, Russia has a simplistic approach. The old saying, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Oh, yes.
Well, Russia has a simple approach. What Russia says is, we will blow you up and we'll keep throwing money and people and weapons at you until you give up. Except they didn't count on the Ukrainians being tough and resilient and getting the rest of the world behind them. But the challenge is this Chinese conspiracy in my book have not been discovered yet. The only people find it, they stumble on it by accident in this small town. Why? Because they're testing it at 3 a.m. They shut everything down for a few minutes. And if that works, good. And then you go to the next test. Then you put it all back on. So the people in the town start noticing that nothing works about 3 a.m. They don't know why. They turn the radio on, nothing, TV, nothing, computer, nothing. What everybody doesn't realize when they think about this is global positioning systems. Most people know what those are.
Yes.
That's because outside we can have nav systems in our cars and all that stuff. Well, one of the biggest users of global positioning systems is the U.S. military. They use it for their warfare planning. Hello?
Okay.
Now, imagine that just shut down. Air traffic control. I mean, the opening of the book, and it won't be too big a spoiler, it's a prologue, and it's set in a few places in Manhattan. All the horns are blaring from the cars. Why? Because all the lights have turned green at the same time. And you have nothing but pile-ups of crashes at intersections where both cars thought they were okay. And so somebody says, well, let's call somebody. Ho, 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 try that. So they pick up the phone. All you hear is a hiss. They turn on the TV. All you see is snow. They go to the internet and say, server not responding. Now, I ask everybody your program reaches America. Everybody that uses technology, imagine how you feel when it's down for just a few minutes or a few hours.
Oh, yeah, go crazy.
Whatever it is you're using. Now, just imagine that happening on everything. Literally everything. At the same time. And so my hometown heroes discover that this is a very bad thing that's going on. So they start snooping around. Of course, it's a traditional redemption love story. They pair up with his old girlfriend and her son, who just came out of the military as a technology expert in the military, and so he knows how this stuff works. And they said, well, we got to do something about this. So they first try and tell some of the authorities. And the authorities said, look, we got bigger fish to fry. We got people launching bombs and stuff like this. Okay, well, what can we do about it? Well, not much. We'll tell you what, we'll give you 2 or 3 people to work with you. That's all we can spare.
Wow.
And that's about as far as I'm going to go in the story, because Margaret Mead was the famous person who said a small group of truly committed people can change the world. And this is an example of how that can happen. But in the meantime, you will suffer mightily, because these people are terrified. They're losing their jobs. They're losing their livelihood. Their plant, which was once the lifeblood of the town, is closing. And what are we going to do? And so the hometown hero comes home, and he's supposed to have a solution. Well, not exactly. He starts getting beaten up by these funny-looking people that are what they call the motel Indians. They hired Pakistanis to help them during Y2K. Pakistanis were really good programmers. And what the Pakistanis did to embed themselves in a place where they'd never get noticed is they just run the Motel 8 in town.
Yes.
And anybody stayed in a Motel 6 or Motel 8 or any of those, they know that almost all of them were bought by people from the Pakistan, India part of the world, because it was a good investment and got them a job in the United States. So I didn't use anything that made up in this book, except for the heroes and the patriots and their resilience and their diligence and their unwillingness to quit and finally get somebody's attention to help them. And so I wanted to keep the element of hope in people's minds. It's a story. It's not a technology book. People say, I don't know technology, but I put all the technical terms in one place, about 10 pages or 10 chapters into the book. And if you want to look at what all these things mean, but anybody that knows what AI is doing these days would not like to have these kind of hackers use AI to amplify the power of their problems. It's bad enough to have an enemy you can't see and you don't know how to attack, but it's worse to have one who's getting into your critical information. And I sat down as I was looking after preparing for this. I wrote I had a little piece of paper to make notes. Sound the alarm. This is a real world story, a hidden threat from China, and it is not coming. It's here. And how do we know that? Well, just one example. Do you know that all of the ports that ships from China come in, all those cranes that do that?
Yes.
They use Chinese software. Do I have to say any more?
Okay. Enough said.
That's an open door for them. It's an enemy no one can see because it's hidden. They don't make a big deal of it. They don't want to be in the news. They just want to be able to do what they want. So then when you say, what happens when nothing works? Well, we learned from Iran and Russia that blowing up the places that you want to dominate leaves rubble. Not a good thing.
No.
But this is, instead of weapons of mass destruction for the WMD, this is the WMD, weapons of mass disruption. Because all you have to do is disrupt a company to throw it into chaos, disrupt a country and throw it into chaos, and then fear and risk come right to the top of your mind. What's it mean to me? Now, I wanted to write a thriller, and the formula for writing thrillers is first you put your protagonists in various kinds of danger.
Yes. And
then they get out of it. And just about the time you think they've gotten out of it, they get into some different kind. And just you get the drift. Yes. That's how people write thrillers. And I studied this before. I'd written a dozen business books before this. Much easier to write. Writing novels is harder because you have to describe every place you talk about, every circumstance. And I was even hoping someday this might make it to the big screen, but movies have gotten so technology oriented. Now I'm saying I want to be a streaming guy, but nobody has brought me a movie deal yet. I'm basically books in every online bookstore on earth that I know of, and I now have audiobook, ebook, and paperback, and I push the prices down to within the range that anybody can afford them. On Amazon, $15 for a paperback, $5 for an ebook. And the audiobook's a little more than $20 because you have to pay somebody to read the book out loud to you. But this has been a very interesting ride for me because I was a professional in other industries, but not in publishing. And so getting a book out there and telling people about it is why I look to people like you, Rick, and your show that reaches not just techies, not just business people, but Americans.
Yes,
because that's who the threat is for, Americans, and they're under attack by an enemy that's invisible. And I tell everything I tell you. If you buy the book, if people buy this book and read it, if they start reading it, warning, you'll get hooked because you'll start pulling for the good guys and not liking the bad guys. Formula for success. and then the next thing you do is you wonder, well, how the heck are they going to get out of this? What are they going to do about this? Half a dozen people in the hills of West Virginia going to take on the Chinese information industry? No, I don't think so. Well, but if you roll enough barrels in their path when they're trying to do things, they start getting irritated. So we're under attack invisibly, but it's being publicized now. Companies have been reluctant to talk about it because they're ashamed. I mean, the city of Columbus was shut down last year by ransomware. For those who don't know what ransomware is, when you go in and steal their computer code and all their data, and say for $5 million or $10 million or how many you ask for, we'll give you your data back. And they can do that. And it's one of the more popular ways to hack people these days because of the payoff. So not bombs and bullets, but wits and wisdom is how this war is going to be fought.
Are we focused on the wrong defense? You know, we think the military has to be our strongest. Then we read this, and it's like what you just said. It's not going to be bullets and rifles and all of this. It's going to be smart people doing bad things. Is our focus on the wrong area? The
answer is yes and no. How's that sound like a politician's answer? I'm not a politician. And I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night. The answer is no, we're focused on some of the right things. and we're not focused on some of the right things. Because the reason people are fighting with bombs and bullets and explosives and all that bad stuff is a legacy issue. What do we as human beings tend to rely on when we don't know how to do something? We rely on how we always did it before.
Yes.
And certainly blowing somebody up. I mean, the reason the Iranians have such a brutal nature to them is they come from the deserts. And the way desert cultures worked, there was the tribe, and there was the culture, and there was the area. And if somebody came in your area and tried to take it, they had a simple approach. They killed them.
Effective,
them out.
Yes.
No problem. So they don't understand this thing about, when we talk about democracy over there, when we went over there with Desert Storm and all this, tried to teach them democracy, I was working with another author who said, we have people over there who are trying to teach people how to install the rule of law properly. And the biggest question that we get after we talk to a bunch of Iraqi judges, I'll call them, said, at the end, it's really quiet. And then finally somebody raises his hand and says, but who will tell us what to decide? Now, that's the culture of that part of the world.
Yes.
Russia's a different culture. China's a very different culture. We need to learn that, and we need to recognize that when this threat comes, we won't see it coming down Main Street with a big flag on it saying, watch out, here I come. It'll be insidious. And so the fighting with bullets is to get control of the information, of the data. See, the Chinese dissidents in my book, they're in the information industry thing in China, so they can plant incriminating stuff all over the place and end up causing people to throw out what were essentially pretty good guys. They're not good guys, but not so bad guys. And they set them up to take the fall. What we have to do is, it's hard to fight these kind of invisible enemies because people are ashamed. They won't tell you about it. They won't publicize it. And our government, frankly, didn't put enough attention on it. We've had 6 presidents since this whole thing started. And honestly, the only 2 that did anything about it was Donald Trump twice and Barack Obama, because he had a guy that was whispering in his ear, you better do something about this or it's going to embarrass you. And we know one thing, politicians don't like to be embarrassed.
No.
So he took action. So some of the right action is taken. The government has now created a center, CISA, Computer Information Security Administration or something like that, where they have used their technology. Now the problem they have is that when they want to hire the best and brightest to work on it, well, I'm sorry, the government doesn't pay the same as Silicon Valley.
Yes.
So the best and brightest go to work for private sectors, not for the government. And that's something that Trump's, I call it his positive bull in the china shop approach to things. Get out of my way, I'm going to change things. He's gone in and wrapped his arms around the private sector. And you saw all the fuss when Elon Musk got the Doge people together.
Yes.
How much people resented that they could go in and actually throw out these people who were working in jobs that did nothing useful for us. But how to fix software is a much more esoteric challenge. So that's a long answer to your question. Our government is working on doing the right things. Their heart's in the right place. Military dominance is an important stage that has to be gone through, because otherwise, it's like bullies on the schoolyard. If you don't stop them by punching them in the face, they'll just keep bullying you. So you have to punch these bad guys in the face a few times. But the challenge is to get the rest of America to realize it does make a difference if you update your passwords. It does make a difference if you talk to somebody who's knowledgeable about computers to help you get rid of something that looks like an annoying, peculiar thing that your computer is doing. It's important to realize if you get a chance to support somebody, either at the polls when you vote or in your area, who wants to actually stop some of these things and not let them run wild. And we've already let Chinese own hundreds of thousands of acres of American property. All they want to do is get in there, so then they'll have people who become shareholders, and then we protect people in the U.S. so well that we're a little bit indiscriminate about some people that we wish we shouldn't protect sometimes.
Yes.
But
The book is The Chinese Conspiracy. If you're just joining us and wondering what's the name of the book and where can I find it, it's The Chinese Conspiracy by John Mariotti. That's Mariotti. Book is available literally wherever books are sold in all the different formats, audiobook now as well. John's website is chase-shifters.com. We've got all this on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You can go and get all the information, order the book there as well. The question is, as you're reading all of this and we realize how far behind we are, what do we need to do? Can we get, is it over, or can we still get the firm footing that we need to protect ourselves?
The answer is hope is a wonderful thing. And the brilliance of technology being able to do things so fast allows you, once you find the offending thing, to actually take action on it faster. So you'll have to read how this book comes out, because it's pretty scary for a while, but stick with it. And you got to be determined. The main thing I encourage people is give this book as a gift to somebody, whether it's $5 for a digital book, or $20 for an audiobook, or $15 for a paperback. Because as I've been trying to launch this book, of course, what we all do is we find friends and people that we see regularly. And I belong to a local Rotary Club that does a lot of great work, and so they laugh now whenever they have a thing we call happy bucks, and you're supposed to tell something you're happy about. And I hold my book up and say, I'm happy that my book's out there. How many of you have gotten it? And as I get more and more of my fellow Rotarians, I get messages from people. Like a good friend of mine last weekend, I got a message that let off with the term, and I'll clean it up, holy crap. This book was spectacular. And I said, well, thank you very much. Obviously I love that, but what'd you like about it? Well, first, it was written in English. I could understand it. Secondly, I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I did book signings one time down in Marco Island, where we spent some time in the winter. And the guy at the bookstore there was very nice, but he didn't want to do a book signing, because he said, people like to read books about Florida stuff. Okay, fair enough. You can do that. And I said, but let me do a test. So I put a dozen books in the local bookstore, made a deal with the bookstore. Let me stack them on the desk with Tom Clancy's books. This is a long time ago. And in a weekend, we sold like 8 of the 10.
Wow.
He said, okay, I'll have a book signing for you. Well, then I had 27 people. 27 people came because the temperature was 75 degrees. The bookstore was like 2 blocks from the beach. What am I expecting? But the point was, the way he told me he was going to do the book signing was he called me at 7:00 in the morning one day, because he got up early and he knew I didn't. He said, and he opened with an expletive like GDU. I was up all night last night trying to finish this book to see how it ended. and I purposely love to write books that make people think and that entertain them, because this is the book that you can easily shut down the stuff that you see on TV that you don't want to watch anyway. It's noise, and sit back in a chair and relax and read. And if you don't want to read, you can listen. I mean, we got a great narrator. He did a wonderful job. And in fact, I had to listen to it myself to make sure that he didn't make any mistakes in it. And he made 5 minor mistakes, were easily corrected. And otherwise, he did a great job of it. And I don't listen to audiobooks, but I know a lot of people that do. And actually, older people and younger people in general listen to audiobooks, because they don't have to hold anything, and they can turn them on and off when they want to.
When they want to, yeah.
And so the reason I'm here sitting talking to you about this is that my platform is pretty small. Your platform is pretty big, and you cover a lot of the stuff that Americans like to know and want to know. And I thought this would be something that would be a perfect fit for your audience to hear about. If they go see The Chinese Conspiracy, the color is the color of the book is orange, bright orange. In fact, I had to fight with the publisher to get the orange bright enough because I wanted to stand out.
And it does.
Bookstores are hard to find single books. Even if you have a table full of them, it's hard. So the first thing I did was I made sure it was online everywhere. Go to Amazon, it's online. Go to Barnes & Noble. Barnes & Noble got to correct a picture. They have all the story of the book, and then they have a wrong cover in one place, but it's the same book, and they can still sell them They don't carry them in their stores unless you ask them to get them, though, because there's tremendous pressure for authors to essentially pay for space, and that's, I understand that. I spent my life selling to retail. I mean, I ran big companies that sold to Walmart and Target and all those folks for years, and so the main way to do this is, it's a great gift item. We're promoting it right now because Christmas is coming and the holidays are coming. And where can you go find a gift item for $15 that'll keep somebody happy for about 5 or 6 hours?
Oh, yes, and really not only entertain them, but inform them. The book is a story of global cyber terrorism, also love, courage, redemption, heroism, ultimately love of country and patriotism. You've got all of it wrapped up in the book, The Chinese Conspiracy. And again, links on our website. A few minutes left in the program. There was a story just recently. Russia suspected of jamming the navigation on an airplane that was flying the European Commission president, and it was over Bulgaria when they thought that this had happened. And you stop and think, I mean, that is it possible to take an airplane out of the air by manipulating computers?
Okay. The Russians were using a hired military in the early stages of trying to take over Ukraine. The military was named the Wagner Group. Wagner with a W, German group.
Okay.
And they were made up largely of military retreads. I mean, not retards, but people that were so brutal that they got thrown out of the military. So the Wagner Group had a leader who was characteristically just like they were. And he spoke out quite openly about Putin and how Putin was not doing some things that he thought were right and was doing some things that he thought were wrong. And then mystically, 4 days later, his private jet exploded in midair over on a flight over part of Russia.
I remember reading about that.
Yeah.
And of course, Putin knew nothing about it.
Well, of course, we don't.
Yeah.
Plausible deniability.
Yeah.
We don't admit to anything. But the fact of the matter is, everybody was like winking and saying, "Oh, that shows you don't say anything publicly bad about Putin," because and hackers can get almost everywhere. Everybody worried about privacy. There's no such thing as privacy anymore. You can protect it a little bit on a micro basis by not giving out. Don't click on links you don't understand. Don't click on an email that comes from somebody you don't know. Throw it in the trash. Get rid of it. Most big companies won't sell you. The government will not send you Medicare stuff by email. Most big banks will not send you anything that you need to take action on by email. They can be thrown on the rack unless it's information that you asked for. And then you have to know that it's coming from somebody that you can rely on. By that means, you get your credit card out and look at the back of the credit card, or get your statement out and look up the correct address, because they make the addresses look exactly like yours, except for like one digit different. And so the answer is, I'm trying to get people to be aware that, and I don't do a good enough job with my own passwords, but I've gotten more careful with them. And there are password managers if you want to undertake those.
Yes.
But they're technically more complicated to use at first. And so it's not a question of what to do or how to do it. It's a question of deciding that the best thing to do when there's an enemy sneaking around doing harm, take some action. Go to somebody. Find a technical support person. Yes, that's okay. You might have to pay for the help. Go to the government. And you can write to your congressman and your senator. In my experience has been, senators are harder to get to. They can do more, but they're harder to get to. Congressmen are usually pretty responsive. You can go talk to them about, what are you doing about this? The government can't solve it, but the government can help it, because the government has really smart people in there doing a lot of stuff, and they are aware of it now. So, protect ourselves. If it doesn't look right, like they talk about terrorism, if it doesn't look right, tell somebody about it.
It's just
Because
such
that's what companies aren't doing.
Such a wonderful job in the book, once again, holding our attention because it's an entertaining story. And we're like, could they really do this? And then you realize, yeah, they could do it, and they probably are doing it. The book is The Chinese Conspiracy. Okay. Go to the neighborhood bookstore and ask for it. As John mentioned, if you ask for it, they'll bring it in. I'll probably bring a few other copies in, and it'll be available there. But it's literally available wherever books are sold. I knew starting the interview this was going to be fun and go by too quickly. I was right on both counts. The time went by, and we need to really do this again. It's so well done, and it certainly belongs on the big screen. Streaming service of some kind. You've got all of the elements there with Jim Martini and the old girlfriend and the Chinese minister of information and the little town in West Virginia. I mean, it's all there. John, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us on the program. What a job you've done with this. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Thank you for your help, Rick. And any time that you want to come back, this is changing so rapidly. I'm sure in 3 to 6 weeks or 8 months, I'll be smarter than ever.
Well, I've got about 18.
Have a wonderful day.
I've got 18 more pages of notes, so I guarantee you we'll be coming back and doing this again. The book is so well done. The Chinese Conspiracy. John Mariotti, that's Mariotti. His website is shape-shifters.com. The book available wherever books are sold. I'd like to thank you, our Link Publishing, print and media, for setting up our conversation with John today, marketing platforms that are customizable for all of the author's needs. That's Link Print and Media, their website, linkpublishing.com. John, once again, a pleasure to have you with us on the program. We will do it again. Thank you for listening. You're listening to, by the way, This Week in America, website thisweekinamerica.us. And we're back on today's program right after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, associate producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, segment producer. Ben Watson, webmaster. Otto Bechet, director of engineering and TV production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, executive producer of This Week in America.